We're live, boys.
We still don't have an
Live.
intro.
That's our
Sorry,
intro.
Josh.
Josh
That's our
hates
lead.
us. Yeah. Joshua hates us. So today we wanted to talk a little bit about parts people credentialing. It came up in a LinkedIn post and I was talking to a gentleman about kind of parts people's roles and things like that. And it took a little while. We're kind of working through the conversation. Then it kind of came up that once I realized he's from Canada, and in our previous session, we had talked about technician credentialing in Canada and licensing in the United States, what that would look like. And so it was kind of fortuitous that this guy is from Canada and he's a parts guy. He's a Red Seal parts guy, which is pretty gangster, I guess, from what I know about the Red Seal technician side of things. And so I'm assuming, that it's it's for sure structured similarly. It's going to got to do a certain amount of hours a year, going to do some class work, going to do certain, going to have that over a 4-year period. Then you're going to sit for your journey person testing. You're going to test out of that, then you're going to do your Red Seal. And from what I understand, it's got more Blue Seal stuff, kind of the business side of things worked into it, kind of blended in there a little more than normal. And so that sounds cool. And I thought that was pretty cool. So I wanted to chat about it a little bit. And then also, Brent, you're already in the Canada. So, you may have some people that you work with currently because you are a dealer technician heavy duty. So there may be some people that you're already aware of that have this. And how popular is it? Because it sounds like it's not a required thing like it is for technicians. I know, like, from all the dealers that I've worked at, very few of the parts people that I worked with went through and got all the OEM certificates, at least the ones that were available to them. Some of them, there wasn't a lot available to them. So I think it's pretty cool, actually, that Canada has something that's very structured. And Brent, could you kind of walk us through just a brief, like, what does that look like, maybe, if you have any understanding of it? And then, because it sounded like they have like actual engines out, they have transmissions tore apart so they can see what they look like inside. Like, that's pretty gangster.
Yeah. So it's structured it's like all the apprenticeship programs are structured fairly similar. They're like a 3-year or a 4-year apprenticeship, right? So same thing, like you get your on the job working hours, you go to school for your 8 weeks, and then, by the end of your 4 years, like you said, you're going to write your journey person exam with whatever province you're in. And then you can write your Red Seal exam, right? So the parts thing, it does break down. So like, yeah, they've got exploded views of components, and, and this covers like heavy duty truck systems, construction and mining, agricultural, they even dive into the industrial, like mill writing side, hydraulic systems, just basic engines, fuel systems, tires, wheels, all that kind of stuff. And then, so they're able to identify these components so that way that, they can try to speak the same language as, the tradesperson that they're working with, right? So this could be, a millwright, this could be a welder, iron worker, this could be, a heavy duty tech, automotive tech, right? And then, they can identify the parts, get the parts, right? And then a lot of the things too, like we're seeing this day and age too, is obsolete parts. So now they're given the tools, where do I find the updated part for this? Because it might not be in their parts catalog, then they go through like inventory management, right? So now a lot of our parts technicians, not only are they on the counter or the back counter doing parts, that kind of thing, they've actually got to, keep inventory. They've got to, do cycle counting, warehouse organization, all that kind of stuff, right? Inventory that's been sitting for too long. So when it comes time for restocking, like, are we going to restock that, right? Or are we going to
Like
keep
obsolescence,
Yeah, obsolescence, right?
It's, and not to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
like parts, like obsolescence is a big thing. Like that they lose a lot of money in their obsolescence. So
yeah,
it's a pretty important.
Yeah, it is pretty important. So, it comes down to, managing the money for the business, the dealer or the business they're in, right? They also have to manage warranty returns, like parts warranty, right? They also have to manage all the vendors that they get the parts from, right? So there's that. And then it becomes into, they get to learn about logistics and supply chain, right? So, purchasing, emergency sourcing, which is huge in our industry, right? So, in mining and heavy duty trucking, like, a truck down or piece of equipment down and we need an emergency part. Well, how do we get it out to site, or how do we get it to the dealer as quick as possible, right? To reduce that downtime. They also do like customs documentation, bill lading, delivery scheduling too, right? So just learning how to schedule parts runs and that kind of stuff, right? And along with all that, like you said, it kind of mentions there's a little bit of the Blue Seal, I guess, kind of tied, like some of that Blue Seal stuff kind of tied into the parts side of things, because there's that customer service and communication aspect, right? So, the customer interview. So what are you looking for, right? They even might be, really good parts tech might be good at asking some diagnostic questions too, right? If you're looking for this part, is it related to this type of situation, that kind of thing, right?
Well, sometimes like the TSBs and stuff, like, like with Cummins, right? You might like, I might think that I need to do this TSB, and, and the TSBs are not like required
Mhm.
repairs. So like,
Yeah.
I may go to the parts guy and say, hey, he might say, well, hey, are you doing this type of diagnostic? Because there is a TSB available and it
Hmm.
requires X parts, right?
Hmm. Yep.
So it's pretty cool if they have an in-depth knowledge of that.
Yeah.
I feel like the upper, just like with technicians, you have like a upper echelon of parts people. Like you have like a top 5%ers, you know what I mean? Or
Mhm.
even maybe less than that, that have a deep understanding of that stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, you know what? There's a TSB available for that,
Mhm.
for an X15 Cummins or whatever.
Yeah.
So
I feel like those parts technicians kind of get migrated to like the back counter, where they
yeah,
just deal one-on-one with the technicians and they deal with the shop flow. And then they deal a lot one-on-one with the foreman for the quoting and all that kind of stuff. Because yeah, there's been times where I've gone up and they're like you just said, they'll say, oh, there's a TSB available and it requires these parts and these consumables, and we'll get that ordered for you. Right. And then
yeah,
so they put that on your work order. Then the foreman adds, the labor time for that. And then, unless it's, a warranty job, then we just pick the SRT time. Right. But then, yeah, there's that. Right. So yeah, like good parts person is worth their weight in gold. Right. And that's why I think, they go through the training that they do up here, and then it's recognized as a trade. Right. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's something that like, like those good parts people, they're true tradesmen. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
Whereas like, I feel like there's less prestige with the parts people. If we beat them up pretty hard, I think around here.
Mm.
I'm guessing you guys kind of do up there as well, but I know as technicians, we're pretty hard on our parts people. We expect a lot of them though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We
We
expect a lot from the parts.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, and like, on the heavy duty side, we get paid hourly, right? So, but I mean, just because we're paid hourly doesn't mean we get to sit around and be like, oh, parts screwed up. I mean, there's accountability on both sides, right? So if the technician isn't communicating properly to the parts department, if the parts person is pulling the wrong parts, or, just being kind of having that
yeah, yeah,
daydreaming attitude type thing, right? So there's got to be, there is. I feel that, every dealer group I've worked for, I guess I've been fortunate enough. The parts departments have been amazing, right? So
right.
yeah.
No, that's pretty fortunate. At least like they probably had a couple of just hammers in there that kind of
Hmm.
kept everything
Yeah.
together. You know what I mean? What do you think, Josh? Like where you come from automotive, do you think that like, because you've worked at a couple of dealers now, a couple of different brands as well, because you're getting kind of tenured and you're not quite gray
Get
bearded yet, but you're getting
getting
there.
old.
But you've worked at a couple of dealers now over your career. Would you say that like there would be any advantages maybe to like having something where these guys get a little more prestige, at least from, they could take a little pride in their
I th-
trade, do you think?
I think no matter what, people are going to take pride in what they do or they're not. This has been my experience, whether there's a certification tied to it or not.
Right.
You know, you can always tell when people care about their job. Do I wish that there was some certification so that there was a little bit more standardization, or at least a little bit more enforced? Yes, because the amount of talent that ends up in the parts department is usually few and far between. It's kind of the afterthought of most dealerships, and that shouldn't be how it is. But I think that happens because of the way the position pays. So maybe having some certification, maybe being able to potentially earn a little bit more money in that role would bring some better talent. But some of the best parts people have that technician brain, that technician background. Not all, but it just helps to know what you're talking about a little bit and being able to speak technicianese, because sometimes you'll be walking back there and be like, I need this hose on the back of the engine. And if they've been in their shoes before, then they might have seen that failure before, and it's going to save a lot of time on the catalog side. It takes a team effort advisors, parts, all of that to happen. But like I said, in my experience, with parts people, it's usually not too much care. We'll say at Mercedes-Benz, it seems like those guys know a little bit more. There's a lot more consumables than there was at Toyota and Subaru. So those guys are on top of pulling every bolt, every gasket, everything. And I'm not sure if that's because Mercedes provides a little bit better information to them, or if that's just because of working for the brand for so long and having the warranties required to.
So yeah, I was Brent, I was thinking about got me jacked up there. Did the baby come in and say hi?
Yeah, no, the kid decided to bust in the door. He saw him kick it open.
He said,
But
"Coming in, boys." No, that's it. I was
no, but
expecting to pull him up on your lap, but you went dark on us.
no, he got in, got out. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's just different. There's different levels of prestige, I think, with brand too, is kind of where
yeah,
I was
yeah.
going with it. So, and I know that if you look at the independent side of the things too, it's a whole different thing there, right? Like they are way less product knowledge and way more like, you're going to have to tell exactly what you're looking for because those guys obviously don't really specialize unless they've been doing it for 10, 20 years.
Yeah. So, we do a lot of, mentorship and things like that on the side of like the mechanic side of things. Like Brent has a very structured environment for his apprentices to come up and learn and do all of those things. And I think we don't have anything from the government that stipulates how we bring up our apprentices, but I feel like Josh, you and I, we put a lot of effort into trying to wherever we work at to kind of bring in something like that, similar to where we can train these guys up and stuff like that. When's the last time you really saw something like that in the parts side? I've never seen it. You know what I mean? They usually bring a guy in, they start him in the back and like
No.
the warehouse.
Yeah.
They kind of bring him up through there, and it takes so long to get them good. You know what I mean? Like, whereas, like, the reason why we do the apprenticeship stuff is not just so that they can be in a good learning environment, but it accelerates their learning because they're with someone or around someone that is experienced and can help them along and do things. And I really feel like they don't really do anything like that in the park side of things for sure. Like, there's not a lot of one-on-one time. They might be sitting at a counter next to each other or something like that, and they kind of jump in. But from what I've noticed, it's like it's hot and heavy. There's a lot of part stuff going on. This guy's working on 3 tickets at a time, and then the junior guy's right there going, and he doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
And then the senior guy will just jump in there and look it up for him and be like, here's the part, quote it out or whatever. So they don't like do a very good job of, teaching them along the way. I don't feel like, and it takes too long for them to get good. Right. I feel like there's some room to grow there on the part side of things, like with the, some structured learning.
I think that all goes back to pay though. I mean, you can only expect so much when you pay what you pay for people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. What do
So
you
if
think?
Well,
Like, go
maybe
ahead,
that's
Brent.
why, maybe that's why our parts guys are the way they are up here, right? Because I mean, most the dealers here anyways, it's only a couple bucks difference between a journeyman parts technician and a heavy duty technician, right? Like
Does
three,
that
four.
does that surprise you, Josh, that like a journeyman or red seal parts person makes within a couple of dollars of a journeyman or a red seal mechanic?
I guess it does. I mean, I think the physicality of the job should definitely be considered into the pay, right? I mean, parts is obviously something that
And the
probably isn't
investment.
as if as yeah, and
Yeah,
so
I think that's kind of where a lot of the disgruntledness between the technician and parts can happen is the fact that it's only a couple dollars difference. And I mean, as a technician, we got to buy our own tools, right? So we're constantly investing, buying new tools, and that kind of stuff. So by the end of our, your 4 or 5 years that it takes you to get to that journeyman status, that, as a technician, you might have 40 to $60,000 worth of tools, right? Whereas a parts tech, what's their investment, right? You could
highlighted.
have that argument, right, for almost the same pay. But
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
mean,
think
that
that's
being
tough
said,
though, right? Because
yeah,
we run into that with the service writers too, right? Especially in automotive, some of those service advisors make 150, $200,000 a year,
yeah,
which is wild.
mhm.
I get that sometimes the job is difficult because it's very customer facing, but like sometimes I wonder to myself, is it 200K hard? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah,
Yep.
I struggle with that a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah.
because there's zero investment there. I mean, maybe investment in time and learning to, deal with people and things like that, but there's not a heavy monetary. They might pay for their own classes somewhere or something like that. I don't know. I doubt it though. But they're not spending, anywhere between 60 and $100,000 over their career on their career, right?
Mhm.
And then in Canada or anywhere in the northern United States, like we got to buy all kinds of weather gear and, cold weather gear and all this stuff. I probably have 2 grand just in cold weather gear, just for working in the cold weather, which is wild because now I live in Georgia and I'll never use it again. But, it just goes to show you that, we spend a lot of money on just
Mhm.
what we do, So, well, we were talking before the show and we were talking after the last show released. And we've decided that we're going to be compressing our shows into 20-minute stints just for ease of listening for you guys, for everybody listening. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to call the show here. But if you enjoyed it, follow us, share with your friends, and all of those things, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.